Welcome to the Capitol News. I am your host, Alex Kreitis. Today is May 24th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to try to keep this a little short because it's Friday. Let you guys go early. Enjoy your long weekend, Memorial Day weekend. A couple things we want to discuss here today has to do with Theresa May. She tendered her resignation. Obviously, it's not for immediate effect, but we'll discuss that. Trump, he does send troops to the Middle East. Why am I not surprised? And then I do want to do a quick here wrap-up of my letter to the president. Hopefully everyone has taken the time to either listen to that podcast where I took the time to read it aloud or went on the capitalnews.com website and took the time to actually read the letter. Now, I was telling you guys earlier that I had tried to boost this article, this letter, out on social media, primarily with the use of Facebook. That turned into its own three-ring circus. Again, not a lot of constructive criticism, if any, whatsoever, in pertaining to the letter itself, because I don't believe that anybody really read the letter. They saw the headline, they saw the picture of President Trump, and then they just went off. They went off the rails, they went off the deep end, they were attacking each other, they were name-calling. I mean, quite a display, quite a sad display for adults, and just trying to elevate the conversation by putting out what I thought was a good letter to the president, just explaining my concerns with how he is handling certain issues and how I think he can improve on those things. This is what it turned into. It turned into its own three-ring circus. I was hoping that the three-ring circus was just in Washington, D.C. Clearly, it's all over the country, and this has nothing to do with the content of the letter. This has nothing to do with the spirit of the letter. It had everything to do with the headline and a picture of the president, and they were off to the races. So much for elevating the conversation. Nevertheless, I did take the time to actually scroll through a myriad of comments, and I happened to stumble upon one. I don't know if this gentleman actually took the time to read it, but he did string together what can be called a sentence, unlike 99.9% of all the other comments on there. He put together a nice little paragraph. And basically, to summarize what he said was this letter should have been addressed to the Democrats, which, okay, I can understand that. However, I don't know for certain if this gentleman did or did not read the letter, but nevertheless, I have to disagree with him because I don't know what sending this letter to the Democrat leadership would accomplish. Likewise, I don't know what sending this letter to the Republican leadership would accomplish. Because on one side, you have the power structure right now in the House, controlled by the Democrats, led by Nancy Pelosi. And on the right, in the Senate, you have the Senate controlled by the Republicans, led by Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. So on the left, on the House side, we have Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrats are obsessed with two things, the two I's, impeachment and investigations. Now, the younger cohort of the Democrat Party is all for impeachment. They, of course, want to continue with the investigations, but the main goal is impeachment. The older heads within the Democrat Party, they want to continue with the investigations. They're more hesitant on the impeachment because they've been through this process before. With Bill Clinton, they know that this can get messy, that it will be messy, and they know that the president likes to get in the mud, and his base is going to support him no matter what. And the president doesn't mind things getting divisive, does not care. He wants this fight because he believes he will come out smelling like a rose. And he probably would, meaning he would not be impeached because even if the Democrats in the House voted for impeachment, the actual trial takes place in the Senate. And the Senate is controlled by the Republicans. So there's really no win situation for the Democrats to move forward with this other than to appease the growing radical movement that has become the Democrat Party. And I don't even know if it is the Democrat Party anymore. It's some sort of liberal mishmash of socialism and Democrat socialists, whatever they want to call themselves, progressives. But I really think the true essence of what the Democrat Party used to stand for is pretty much gone by the wayside. And I'm sure that counter argument could be made for the Republican side too. But nevertheless, what is sending a letter to a woman and her lieutenants around her who have been serving, quote unquote, serving this country for the past 30 some years, what is that going to accomplish? I mean, they're just going to use it as toilet paper. They're not even going to read it. Why would they? And what are they going to do? Absolutely nothing. They have caused the problems that this country faces. So they're not going to do anything. And they're more obsessed with, again, the two I's, impeachment and investigation. So sending that letter to them would have accomplished absolutely nothing. Likewise, sending it to Mitch McConnell or other Republican leaders within the Senate would also accomplish absolutely nothing because he's been there for decades. What has he accomplished? Nothing. He's part of the problem too. And again, we have problem after problem that we talk about here all the time, hoping that somebody addresses them. And what type of legislation do we get in the Senate? Well, Mitch McConnell thinks it's a priority to increase the smoking age from 18 to 21. So what am I going to accomplish by sending the letter to the Republicans? Absolutely nothing. And just for anybody who may be joining for the first time, I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I'm a registered libertarian. I don't have a dog in this hunt. My dog in this hunt is the truth and good policy to solve a lot of problems. I'm not concerned with impeachment investigations. That's the three-ring circus. I'm most definitely not concerned with the smoking age because evidently we can send 18-year-olds overseas to get their heads blown off or to blow somebody else's head off, but they can't smoke a cigarette. Now, you explain that one to me, I would appreciate it. But that's where our focus is in this country. As the policies that have been enacted and in place here for generations are exponentially catching up with themselves to the failures of which they are from day one. Now you just have a whole thing coming together of demographics, the economy rolling over, failed economic policy from the Federal Reserve and from the government administration after administration, all coming to a head, and nobody wants to tackle this problem. So let's just focus on impeachment and investigations and increasing the smoking age. And somehow they must think that that's going to solve the problem. Now, I don't know if sending this letter to the president is going to solve anything either, but given my choices, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, or Donald Trump, I think Donald Trump is my best bet because he was elected, at least in my opinion, because he was not supposed to be a typical politician. And that's what this letter addresses. But so far, if we just look at the evidence of a man who was, I think, primarily elected to shake things up and to drain the swamp because people were most definitely tired on the Republican side of 8 years of Obama and his miserable administration, but you also had a whole bunch of people on the left who were also still quite upset with the shortcomings of the Obama administration and the shenanigans of the Democratic National Committee with that whole election process where it was basically stolen from Bernie Sanders. And those people just said, you know what, we're not going to vote for Hillary Clinton because she's a part of this establishment. And what they did to Bernie Sanders was just a travesty. And now maybe we're going to vote for Trump instead. And that's what happened. So Trump won Pennsylvania, he won Ohio, he won Michigan, he won Wisconsin, a whole host of states that nobody thought he was going to win, with the exception of Ohio. That was a toss-up. Can he carry those states again in 2020? That's going to be an interesting question, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote this letter. Because so far, if you just look at the evidence, despite all of the things that this president has been up against, including the investigation, and a very divisive public and a very divisive news media that attacks him on a daily basis. Although I think Trump and the media both get their kicks out of this because the media gets to make their money because Donald Trump makes everything a spectacle and Donald Trump likes making everything a spectacle. So it's sort of a win-win. And for Donald Trump, he gets to play to his base. Say, look, these people don't like me. Look what they're saying about me on a day-to-day basis. So, I mean, it becomes a win-win situation between the media and the president. Believe me when I tell you. So that's something we have to pay attention to. But if you look at the evidence, we have trillion-dollar deficits. We had tax cuts that were not paid for. We have trillion-dollar deficits as far as the eye can see, and that's by the own admission of this administration, given their 2020 budget. We have been spending like drunken sailors on the military and our defense, $700 billion per year, giving them more money than what it was even requested from the Defense Department. I mean, the banks are making record profits. The military-industrial complex is alive and well. what's being accomplished. Our trade deficits are the widest in U.S. history. I mean, this is not draining the swamp. This is not a strong, vibrant economy, despite some statistics that the president will point to, primarily that of unemployment and GDP. But if you follow this podcast, particularly our economic podcast, we know that these numbers are bogus. So what evidence is there that this man, Donald Trump, is draining the swamp? Not too much. And him taking ownership of the economy and the stock market has been a terrible mistake. Terrible mistake. And that's what that letter addresses. We have also been strung along with the U.S.-China trade war, or trade talks at the time, because that's what it was. We were constantly negotiating. Well, yeah, everything's going to be fine. If I can't say it, being Donald Trump, then I'm going to send Larry Kudlow out there, or Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin out there, or Kellyanne Conway, or somebody's going to come out there and say everything's fine, and we're going to make a deal. It's going to be great and historic. And where are we now? Well, it's escalating. It's now a trade war. We're increasing tariffs. The Chinese are set to increase tariffs on our goods next week. So, I mean, how much further along are we going to continue to be strung along? Because the next thing that we have now, and what we have been discussing here for a while and have been optimistic of, is the president going to declassify documents. Well, now we have learned today that the president is going to declassify documents. He has ordered the Attorney General to look into the genesis of this whole Russia conspiracy, and we're going to have some documents declassified after an investigation. Now the question is, how long is this investigation going to take? Because Bob Mueller's investigation took 22 months. So is Bill Barr, the Attorney General, along with the U.S. Attorney out of the state of Connecticut, who is supposedly investigating the genesis of this whole Russia hoax, how long is that going to take? Is it going to take a week? Is it going to take a month? Is it going to take 6 months? Because we're in the midst of the 2020 presidential election. So 22 months, too late. The next president will have been elected already. Furthermore, even if we come to the conclusion that this was an insurance policy by the deep state, by the Obama administration, what does that mean? How many people are going to believe it? How many people are going to actually be prosecuted? Because that's going to be the next step, right? You'd have to press charges. You have to prosecute them. Well, these people aren't going to be put on trial the next day. It's going to take a long time, because if you're swinging, you're swinging high up there. You're swinging at President Obama himself, members of his administration, Hillary Clinton, Susan Rice, Samantha Powers, Jim Comey, James Clapper, John Brennan. We know the names. We go over them all the time here. So how long is that going to take to put these people on trial, if that's the decision that is made? Because these people are the most powerful people in the country. They are going to have the best attorneys money can buy, and they are not going to be through a quick and speedy trial. They are going to stall. They are going to investigate their side of things, gather up all their evidence, because if the government's going to go after these people, they can't miss them. If you're going to strike at the queen, you got to kill her, because if you don't, you got a big problem. Is that going to happen, or is this going to be the narrative that the president uses to string along his base even further? That is what I am growing concerned of, because of his past history with a whole host of other issues. That the wall was going to be built immediately. Well, it's still really not even truly in the process. And how long did that take? That took 2 years. There's no infrastructure going on. And this was in the background of his first 2 years, when he had the presidency, the House, and the Senate. So those things did not get done. Now, here we are in the midst of this three-ring circus. They're now stepping away from the table of putting forth some sort of infrastructure bill. I don't know what, if anything, will be accomplished over the next 18 months, given the heightened rhetoric from both sides. And now the president is investigating the investigators, which he should be doing. He very much should be doing. So now the question becomes, how likely is it that the Democrats are going to cross the line to now negotiate with the president? Because they are now under investigation. Their lackeys, their cronies, their buddies are now under investigation, and they know what happened. So for anything to get accomplished over the next year and a half is slim to none, and Slim just left town. So we have to pay attention to this type of stuff, because I want justice to be upheld. I do not want a two-tiered justice system. I don't think anybody does. But we have just been strung along for 6 months with this U.S.-China trade war. We have been strung along already because the president has been making remarks for over a year that I have information that I can declassify that's not going to be pretty. In the meantime, you have had just the soul and the essence of this country grow even more divisive towards one another. You actually have people out there, men and women, who will not date each other or be in a relationship with each other because somebody voted for Trump or somebody voted for Hillary Clinton. That's how divisive it is. People can't even have a conversation on a whole host of 99.9% of everything else. If you just did that one thing, not for me. That's how divisive it is. That's how toxic the environment is. And if the president had the truth in his back pocket the whole time, that this was a fraud, then that should have been made known to the American people immediately. Now, I don't know. I am not a lawyer, so I don't know if it was construed. You say, you know what, Mr. President, if you declassify some of these documents, maybe the Bob Mueller investigation, they'll find that is obstructing justice because they're investigating and then you're showing some other evidence out there. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, but it seems to me that if the whole thing was a hoax to begin with, that should trump everything. What are you obstructing if the whole crime of the matter was perpetrated by somebody else? You get what I'm saying? So I don't really follow that logic, but again, I'm not an attorney. But for the president to be sitting on this, I think in and of itself is a lack of leadership because this country has grown more and more divisive. If now, when this comes out, which I believe it still will come out, that this whole thing was a hoax, that this was an insurance policy put in place by the Obama administration with the help of the Clintons, with the Steele dossier, with the DNC, with Fusion GPS, with all of the names we always rattle off here, will the American people even believe it? Because now they're going to say, whoa, he was just investigated for 22 months. He's been saying this thing's been a hoax. His base always says lock her up or lock them up. Is this just politics? Is he cherry-picking some evidence on the other side that has not been known to the people? Is this just revenge? Because all of the people who don't believe this president to begin with and are already anti-Trumpers, that's what they're going to cling to. So that's just going to cause even more divisiveness. I hope I'm wrong. I hope when the facts come out, when the truth is made known to the American people, that a light goes off above their heads and they say, oh my goodness, we can't have this. If we're supposed to be equal justice under the law as a country of laws, we can't have this, no matter who it was. I can't believe the Obama administration was involved in this. I can't believe Hillary Clinton was this corrupt. I'm doubtful that that's going to happen. But that's how divisive this country is. So let's hope and pray that this country ceases to be a system with two separate legal systems. If you're well connected, you're fine, you can skate. But if you don't have a lot of money or a lot of connections, you're in a lot of trouble. Now, moving on quickly to Theresa May. She again tendered her resignation today. She will no longer be the leader of the Tory party in early June, but she will still maintain her prime ministership until the end of July, while her party decides who will become the next prime minister of the UK. This is going to be its own three-ring circus over there for quite a while. Again, Theresa May, you have to sort of pat her on the back for her grit and determination and her hard work and effort to try to get a deal through Parliament. This is obviously something that is very divisive over there in the UK. A lot of people wanted to remain. A lot of members of Parliament themselves voted to remain, and now it was incumbent upon them to fulfill the will and the wishes of the British people to leave. So you sort of had that conflict of interest, but nevertheless, that was their job. That was their manifesto of which they were elected upon, that despite the fact that, yes, we wanted to remain, we are going to still fulfill the wishes and the vote of the referendum in June of 2016. Now, unfortunately, Mrs. May was up against quite the mountain. She was not able to summit it. So, unfortunately, she's resigning. Who will be the next prime minister is anybody's guess. What happens after that is anybody's guess, because we have a new hard deadline of Halloween, October 31st of this year. Deal or no deal, the British people are supposed to leave. That's it. Now, we know that was supposed to happen on March 29th of this year, and that didn't happen. So who knows if the can will get kicked down further and further down the road come Halloween. I hope it doesn't. But we will see. And we're also going to keep you guys updated, obviously, on the EU elections, which started yesterday in the UK and the Netherlands, also taking place today in several other countries and will for tomorrow as well. And then those votes should be tallied up, and we should have all of the results or most of the results by late Sunday evening, or hopefully by Monday at the latest. So I will keep you guys updated on that. But Theresa May has tendered her resignation. Now, lastly, before we sign off here for the week, and unfortunately it's on some sad news, in my opinion, because the president has sent what we are told is 1,500 troops to the Middle East. Now, just recently we were saying, well, we were hoping that President Trump was trying to stick to his words and saying that he does not want war with Iran. He doesn't want it. Well, it seems to me that somebody is getting to him, because every other decision just seems to be further in escalation and the increasing the likelihood that we are going to have some sort of war, conflict with the Iranians or somebody else in the Middle East. Can we afford it? No. Do you want more people going over there? I hope not. I don't. But nevertheless, this is what we're doing. We have the air carrier strike force that's been over there. Now we're sending 1,500 troops. And I have it from some other sources. I'm not going to say this is the truth because I don't know if it is. But what I have come across is that 1,500 is just a number that the president and the White House are sending out there to the public right now, when in fact it's quite higher than 1,500. But I don't have that for certain, so I'm just going to, but I wanted to throw that out there. But nevertheless, we're told 1,500 troops, U.S. troops, are headed to the Middle East. For what? I don't know what the mission is. I don't know what the mission is, because what we're told by the two warmongers in the administration that we know of is John Bolton, head of national security, and Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, is that Iran is, increasing their hostility towards members of the Middle East and to U.S. interests. Now, what that means is anybody's guess. I have no idea. I also came across an article earlier today where the president has pretty much declared an emergency to bypass Congress so that the United States can sell more military arms and ammunition to our Middle Eastern allies, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Jordan. So this is fantastic. Trying to avoid war by sending more weapons to the Middle East, an air carrier, strike force, and now at least 1,500 U.S. troops to the region. Is this just posturing? Is this a way to intimidate the Iranians into standing down from whatever they're doing? I don't even know what they're doing. Maybe that'll work and everybody can come home and nobody gets killed. I hope that's the case. But all I know is when you send more troops and military personnel into the area, you're just increasing the likelihood that something is going to go wrong. Could this be some sort of setup for a false flag attack? I really hope not. But if you understand American history, that would be the rule. That would be what we expect, not the exception. I really hope this doesn't escalate. I don't want to send more Americans to the Middle East to fight a war that we don't need to be fighting. I don't want the bloodshed. I don't want the deaths. We don't have the money. What's the purpose? What are we gaining from this? I really don't know what Mike Pompeo and John Bolton are even doing in this administration, particularly John Bolton. I have no idea what he's doing in there. I don't know how he got in there. I mean, he was part of the Bush administration. He was there for all of this escalation with Iraq. He's had his eyes on Iran and Venezuela for quite a long time. And lo and behold, we're now very aggressively meddling in Venezuela, in saber-rattling in Iran. Coincidence? I don't think so. I really don't think so. So we have to pay attention to all of this. I'm going to let you guys go now. Monday is Memorial Day. I don't know if I will be on But stay tuned. I might be because of those results from the EU elections. But nevertheless, and hopefully nothing escalates over the weekend in regards to the U.S.-China trade war or anything with Venezuela or Iran. But if it does, then I will most definitely do something on Monday. But nevertheless, enjoy your weekend and enjoy your day off if you have off on Monday. And we'll catch you back here next week. This is the Capital News. I am Alex Karitis. Godspeed.